That picture has been sitting in my office all week and kind of scared me every time I turned around. It was like she was looking over my shoulder. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Eldon Faulkner, and for the last 15 years, I've had the privilege of being Beryl's pastor. I'd like to welcome you here to Harmony Baptist Church this afternoon, and also like to acknowledge the presence of Stan Grummett, who, under other circumstances, I'm sure, would have been presiding over this service. We've gathered here today in the presence of God to remember and to celebrate the life of our dear friend and loved one, Beryl Matheson, who has died. We're here today to celebrate, but also to support one another as we grieve. We're here to celebrate the memory of a very, very special little lady who is no longer with us. We're here because in one way or another, Beryl's death affects every one of us. Tears have a place here today because our lives are poorer for her loss. On the other hand, our sorrow is not unrelieved, for we know that because of Beryl, we have much to celebrate and to remember with deep gratitude. Even though we may still be reeling from the news of her death, we know that she is home at last and that she's reunited with her beloved Stuart. We must be clear that our tears today are for our loss, not for hers, for she is in a place where pain and tears and death will never touch her again. The same God through whom Beryl has victory over death is indeed present and available to us in our time of need today. And so I invite each of you to use this time to consider, to remember, and in quiet gratitude, to give thanks for Beryl's life, but also for your own continuing lives. Most importantly, we're here to renew our trust in a God who has said, "I will not fail you or desert you." Let's turn then to God for the comfort and guidance we need in this time. Let us pray. Eternal God, creator of all that is, we come before you in our time of need. Your love is stronger than death. And we know that you've already received Beryl into your presence, for though her physical body is gone, she's with you and with all who have gone on ahead of us. So we bring to you now the mix of feelings and questions, regrets and memories that stir inside us. Help us to hear your promises to us and to believe and to receive comfort from them today. You alone can meet our needs, so give us courage and strength for today and hope and peace for the days ahead. Amen. There's a psalm that I'm sure most of us are familiar with, Psalm 23, that talks about God being our shepherd, about being at peace because of who is watching over us. And I want to invite you to join me in singing right now a musical version of that song, "The Lord is my shepherd." The words will be behind me. this afternoon, I'm pleased that we have some family members and a friend who are going to share their personal remembrances, and appreciate your willingness to do that. We're going to invite you to come in the order that are listed in the bulletin. First, Beryl's son Dennis, then her daughter Kathy, then her niece Lisa, and then her dear friend Gloria. Please come now.
Thank you, Pastor. As Pastor Eldon said, we gather here to honor and celebrate the life of a remarkable woman, my mother, Beryl Matheson. At 103 and a half, she lived an extraordinary life filled with laughter and love. Her journey began in 1921 in St. John's, way before it became part of Canada. She lived through times of great change and adapted with grace and resilience. Just imagine life 100 years ago. Entertainment was sitting around the piano while family members played, or listening to the golden age of radio. Shows like Ozzie and Harriet, Dick Tracy, stars like Abbott and Costello, Jack Benny, Groucho filled the airwaves. During the last few years, we've kept in touch with Mom through the miracle of the internet. What changes she saw from radio to FaceTime. Mom's life was a testament to the strength of her human spirit. During the Second World War, she worked for U.S. Naval Intelligence, playing an important role in something much larger than herself, while helping to shape history. She tracked the locations of U.S. Navy ships in the North Atlantic. Her commitment and service were part of what made her who she was, someone who believed in doing her part. You know, she kept in touch with all three of her commanders from those war years, regularly visiting them in Indiana and California up until 10 years ago. One blacked out night, a precaution against the threat of enemy submarines in the St. John's Harbor, she attended a dance. Across the room, she locked eyes with a young mariner. At the same time, he saw her. It was love at first sight. When he returned from his tour of duty, he looked her up. By then, she had moved to Buffalo, New York, and he followed her there. Beryl and Stuart married September 1945. Mom moved to Hamilton because Audrey Lake, her best friend from St. John's, had settled here, drawn by the promise of post-war job opportunities. Beryl met Irving Zucker, who had just got off the plane, was starting his very first business. Beryl became his first secretary. Back when relationships and loyalty mattered deeply, Mr. Zucker continued to help Beryl by hiring Stuart during many of those Stelco strikes. In 1954, when I was 4 years old, we moved from Vine Street downtown to West 19th Street, across from Westmount Baptist Church, which later merged to become Harmony Baptist. Mom and Dad became devoted members of the church. Dad was a deacon. I remember our basement filled with all the church pews that Dad was sanding and varnishing for the new church. That was before recycling even had a name. Mom's St. John's musical upbringing flourished at Westmount Baptist. She sang in the choir, performed solos at weddings and funerals, and occasionally played the piano at church. But it wasn't just her work at her service that defined her. Mom came from a family of entertainers. Sister Ruby was an actress on stage and screen in New York City. Sandra, played piano for the Canadian Opera Company and directed the chorus and played piano with Calgary Opera. Brother Clyde still plays the piano in his retirement in St. John's. Mom, too, was an entertainer, as you all know. She had an incredible sense of humor that could light up any room. She always knew how to bring a smile to those around her. Her laughter was infectious, and her wit remained smart throughout her life. I remember one time when she gave a speech at a choir year-end dinner at the Plainsman. She got up with a water glass filled with tea, slurred her words, and was unsteady throughout the speech. Needless to say, everyone was shocked. Only at the end did she utter her famous line, "Only kidding." How often have you heard that phrase from her? Maybe after she told you she'd just gotten off the phone with Obama, Pierre, or Justin, or Queen Elizabeth. Her ability to joke and make light of any situation was one of the many things that made her so special. And then there's hockey. The Maple Leafs. Don't get me started. Did you know that back in St. John's, Beryl played defense, the only woman on an all-male ice hockey team, a pioneer in women's hockey. She was more than a mother. She was a friend and an inspiration. Those of us who were lucky enough to know her, and I include you all here, were blessed with her wisdom, her kindness, and her ability to make us happy. Her strength and enduring spirit have shaped all of us in ways we'll carry for the rest of our lives. As we say goodbye today, let's not dwell in sadness, but instead celebrate her remarkable life. Let us remember her for the joy she brought into the world and for the legacy that she leaves behind. Her memory will live on in each of us, in the stories we share and the strength we carry from her example. We're all better for knowing her, and we'll forever cherish the time we had with her. Kathy and I decided to divide our memories of Beryl's life at the year 1965. And before I turn this over to Kathy, with the second half century of Beryl's life, I'll leave you with a couple of thoughts. 2,500 years ago, the Buddha said, "All things are impermanent. They arise, they pass away." Understanding this deeply brings the ultimate happiness, which is peace. My second quote, in 1965, Brian Wilson of the Beach Boys wrote, "God only knows what I'd be without you." Thank you, Mom, for, well, everything.
Our mother lived a life of Our mother lived a life of unparalleled, I can't see it, energy, warmth, and passion. Beryl touched the lives of so many with her vitality and spirit. She wasn't just a survivor of the years, she embraced every day with the zest of life. That was nothing short of inspiring. We all know Beryl was a true sports enthusiast. Whether it was hockey or baseball, she referred to the players like Austin and Vladdy as though they too were her best friends. Her love for all things athletic was contagious, whether it was cheering on her teams or simply chatting with friends about last night's game. Everyone knew how much joy all sports brought her. Before the invention of the video recorder in the late 1970s, Beryl had a particular way of prioritizing her weekends. Stuart would often ask, with a smile, "What on Saturday night conflicted with our declined invitation from so-and-so?" As though it were obvious to everyone else, the answer was always clear. It was the Leafs playing the Habs, the Bruins, the Blackhawks. For Beryl, no social engagement could complete with a night of hockey. Her love for adventure was just as boundless. We were a one-car family, and that car was Beryl's. You never, ever saw Stuart behind the wheel. And I can tell you firsthand, the world was a safer place because of it. It was never about economizing. Beryl loved to drive, and she drove everywhere. She and Stuart visited every province in Canada, even taking the car and the ferry from Port aux Basques, Newfoundland, and then driving the 910 kilometers to St. John's to visit her family, including her brother Clyde, who is watching us here today from St. John's. To ensure she was fair to her siblings, the following year, we would drive to Banff, often traveling by way of the prairies, to visit her youngest sister, Sandra, who's watching us here from Calgary today, with her family. I distinctly remember driving across the prairies one time and falling asleep in the back of the car. I was awakened by a large chest-heaving sobs. What could possibly be the problem? Well, after several hundred kilometers, the transport truck that Beryl had been traveling behind along the Trans-Canada signaled he was exiting. She considered him a fellow road warrior. He tooted the horn as he exited the highway. That was a regular occurrence. And as far as for the annexed United States, well, she drove to and visited over 40 states, whether it was to visit her sister Ruby in Summerstock or on Broadway, or visiting cousins and friends along the way, and of course, her U.S. Navy buddies. Road trip. But her travels didn't stop there. After they were retired, she and Stuart joined a seniors group and began venturing overseas, creating lasting memories with new friendships formed by traveling through Europe. Speaking of cars, Beryl wanted a brand new car. We went to visit Lowell Richter at Eastgate Ford. Lowell was surprised to read Beryl's age on the lease agreement. After all, Beryl never looked her age. He was concerned at 87, she was requesting a 5-year term. 5 years later, at 2013, she marched into Eastgate Ford, bought out the car, and continued to embrace the independence driving provided and the freedom that came with it. It's hard to imagine the terms of one giving up their driver's license. Perhaps one of the most defining moments for Beryl was when 2 months before her 100th birthday, I phoned her and asked, "Are you heading to Lime Ridge Mall today?" "Oh, yes," she said, yes. I said, "You'll need to call an Uber. I had Lowell come and pick up your car on a flatbed truck this morning. It's time for you to be allowed to be driven by others." Home was a place of refuge for Beryl. It was a place where her heart and her door was always open, and where at some point each of her 3 sisters were welcomed and found comfort, laughter, warmth, and love living in our home. Okay, let's be serious. Stuart did the cooking. Beryl's welcoming nature extended beyond family, too. Beryl was so proud to have her favorite grandson, Paul, staying with her one summer while working on his master's. Over the years, she invited missionaries from the Baptist Church to have a temporary home on West 19th. Her generosity and kindness were always on display, and the connections she built over time were a testament to her heart. One of the places Beryl's impact was most felt was at Westmount Baptist Church, as Dennis said, the predecessor to Harmony. As Dennis mentioned, it wasn't just about the connection to the church itself, it was the lifelong friendships that grew out of it. Friends like Joan Jameson, Mark Friend, Gloria and Nelson Brooks, Eleanor Percy, the Watkinsons, the Rices, and of course, Pastor Horn and Grummett. Some of the favorite memories include New Year's Eve at Harvey and Marg McPherson's home with their 4 sons. For many years, I'd look forward to heading over to West 28th and watching The Great Escape with the family, a film I've now seen over 40 times. As if that wasn't enough, Beryl showed us that age was truly just a number. In her 70s, she saw an announcement in the church bulletin. The young newly married couples group was having a Halloween party. Beryl crashed the party in style, wearing a black bodysuit, a white bra over the bodysuit, a face mask, snorkel, and fins. To top it off, to disguise who she was, she had written on her face mask the slogan from a popular TV commercial of the time, "I dreamt I went swimming in my maiden form bra." And true to her playful nature, she didn't say a word the entire evening. She simply let her costume and her humor speak for itself. Always young at heart, always full of surprises, and never afraid to have a little fun. In the mid-60s, Beryl went to work at the now bygone Robinson's department store. Her 15-year career included manager of cosmetics. In the 70s and 80s, it was a perfect outlet for her 2 passions, makeup and fashion. This worked out well for me as a teenager. I distinctly remember she would have so much fun giving makeup application lessons to the girls she mentored as leader of the CGIT, and to my girlfriends too, as she shared the latest color trends, and that matched our lipstick, and on it went. Those moments were special and unforgettable. Beryl has friends here today, more my age than hers, lifelong friends that she made while working at Robinson's. Yes, Beryl was always dressed and always ready for any social setting. Even when occasionally hospitalized, the only items from home she requested was her makeup. And don't just bring one shade of lipstick. Her last day, the nurses told me by 7 a.m. she'd be requesting their assistance with her morning routine so she could apply her makeup and lipstick and be ready to hold court with the daily technicians and physicians. After Stuart died, and for many years after, I would ask Beryl, "Are you looking for a new man in your life?" She had a lot more life to live, more theater, more sports. She'd laugh and she'd say, "Well, I have 1 egg left, and I'm looking for just the right man." Someone maybe 20 years younger to keep up with me. In 2019, Beryl sold her home of 67 years and embraced her move to Meadowlands Retirement Community. Great, she said. No more cooking. A whole new set of friends, and they all are within walking distance indoors. Friends to have meals with, play euchre with, and of course, go shopping with. Friends like Pat Stanley and events coordinator Don McCurdy. Beryl thrived at the Meadowlands. At 99, she took up billiards, showing us that it's never too late to learn something new, to challenge yourself, and to keep growing. Whether or not she was good at pool doesn't really matter. It was about enjoying a laugh with her loyal friend Jim Dixon. Beryl taught us the value of curiosity and remaining active. When the pandemic kept her confined to her apartment, in addition to increasing her already voracious appetite for reading, Beryl took up painting. She loved to paint birds. Every day, it seemed, we'd be on FaceTime, Dennis and I, and there would be Beryl showing us her paintings of her birds. So proud of the birds, so proud to have painted them. She'd hang them on her walls in her apartment for all to see, and it gave her great joy to have visitors choose their favorite to take home. Think about it. Beryl lived through the greatest technological advancements of our time, and she embraced them all. From the television to the mobile phone, she embraced each new invention with the enthusiasm of a child discovering a new toy. Beryl was a true example of resilience, strength, and the beauty of living with no regrets, and her unwavering determination will forever inspire us. She loved life, and she lived it fully. Beryl made her own rules and never let anything hold her back, a testament to the idea that age is just a number, and the heart and mind timeless. Whether it was her passion for sports, her love of travel, or her playful spirit, she always found joy in the world around her. She showed us that there are no limits to what we can do, no matter our age, and that sometimes the best memories come from simply embracing life with open arms and a sense of humor. Beryl's life wasn't just about the places she went or the things she did. It was about the way she made people feel. Her laughter, her spirit, and her love will continue to echo in the hearts of all of us who knew her. She made every person who entered her life feel valued, loved, and cherished. Her legacy is one of kindness, generosity, and a life fully lived. Our mother has left a lasting mark in this world, and for that we are forever grateful. Rest in peace, dear Beryl. You've earned it.
You're the funny one. Oh, I didn't want to have to follow you guys. I'm Lisa. I'm Beryl's niece, and her sister Sandra, who's the youngest of the family, her daughter. I'm here to speak on behalf of my mom and my family, as well as her brother Clyde, who is still in Newfoundland. Only the boys stayed behind. So Clyde and his daughter Diane. So first I'll speak on behalf of the family from Newfoundland. And Kathy and Dennis really want me to do this with my Newfoundland accent, but I don't think I would do them service. But I will say it's Newfoundland and not Newfoundland. So from Diane and Clyde, when I think of Aunt Beryl, my memories are fond ones that leave me smiling. As a child, I was always so excited when Beryl and Stuart came to visit us in Newfoundland. You're welcome. She was so funny and always made us kids laugh by either crossing her eyes or playing the trumpet, or was it the harp, with her nose. I actually remember her doing that too. And of course, her proficiency in speaking Pig Latin. And actually, she and I think my mother and perhaps the other sisters also had their own language that I don't know if you know, Kathy, but I speak it quite well. She was always so put together with her hair and makeup, stylish outfits, and was never without her jewelry. Besides her sense of humor, Beryl had a big heart and always welcomed friends and family with open arms. Although Dad, Brother Clyde, was only a boy when Beryl left home on 56 Fleming Street, he remembers the day when Beryl and sisters Irma and Ruby would dress up to go to work or to a dance on the military base in Pleasantville. Beryl befriended many people back then and often brought them home to enjoy a home-cooked meal around a family dinner table to try and make being away from their own families a little easier. When Clyde was grown with a family of his own, he recalls the time we landed on Beryl and Stuart's doorstep in Hamilton, unannounced, and within minutes, we were sat around reminiscing with a full meal on the table. As a young girl in my 20s, I decided to make a move to Ontario to jumpstart my career. Beryl did not hesitate to take me under her wing and let me stay with her and Stuart on West 19th Street. I had just learned how to cross-stitch, and Aunt Beryl wanted to learn. We would sit at the dining room table every night and talk and cross-stitch until all hours. It's one of my favorite memories of that time. Although I chose not to stay in Ontario, I was lucky enough to find love there, and Beryl was a shoulder for me to lean on through the ups and downs of young love. Aunt Beryl never forgot a Christmas card or birthday card, and always addressed my cards to Mrs. Robert Vincer. My husband always got a kick out of that. Beryl was a strong, independent woman who loved her family and friends and had a zest for life. Every one of her 103 years on this earth were well spent, creating many cherished memories that will live on in all of us. So that's from Cousin Diane. We call her Lil Diane because she is the youngest of a very long lineage of Johnstons. Okay, now I just have to find mine. Okay. And I'm really glad I chose not to sing today. I was going to offer that up, but honestly, even speaking from my heart for her, Beryl was such a gift. And yes, I will miss the birthday cards. And she always won, and she did address mine, Mrs. Kirk Thompson. So when it came this last October, Kirk opened it up for my birthday, and I said, "Oh, Beryl sent you a birthday card on my birthday. How nice." Okay, so this is from my mother, Sandra, who is desperately trying to watch this in Calgary and wasn't getting sound. So I'm hoping she's able to get on. My mom, anyways, this is from my mom, as the youngest of 7 children, or I guess from me, with my mom. As the youngest of 7 children, my mother didn't grow up with most of her siblings under the same roof. But despite the years between them, Beryl, 18 years her senior, was a beacon in her world, always carving out time to be with her. Beryl, or Boily, as my mom fondly called her, had a flair for the dramatic and a mischievous sense of humor. My mother recalls childhood moments filled with laughter. Boily sprawled on the floor playing dead, while Mom desperately tried to pry her eyes open, caught up in the game. Beryl loved the spectacle of it all, and even as the years passed, her playful spirit never faded. And it actually reminds me when I was little in the house, because the Addams family was really big at the time. She loved grabbing my arm and saying, I love you, in French, because she just had a way of making us all laugh. When my mom left St. John's for the big city of Toronto, it was Beryl who became her surrogate mother, her safe harbor. Beryl and Stuart's home in Hamilton became a place of refuge, filled with warmth and family, easing the ache of homesickness. Without Beryl's steadfast love, my mother often said she might have packed up and gone back to Newfoundland. Thank goodness she didn't, because soon she met my father. Life took my parents to Calgary, where I was born, but eventually we returned to Toronto, and once again, Beryl and Stuart opened their doors, this time to all of us. I still cherish the memory of being a little girl and giggling uncontrollably at Beryl's antics, her joy so infectious that it left a mark on my childhood. Distance never dulled their bond. Even with miles stretching between them, Beryl and Stuart made the long journey out west very often, and we in turn made the 5-day drive back east, always drawn by the gravitational pull of our family. Through it all, Beryl was the glue of the Johnston family, the matriarch who held us together with unwavering love. When I left home at 17 and moved to Ontario, it was Beryl and Stuart who greeted me at the airport, ready to guide me into this new chapter of my life. As a matter of fact, they drove me to my residence at Queen, and in true Queen's frosh manner, people sprayed pickle juice through the windows of the car, hitting Beryl and Stuart. Bless their hearts, they didn't mind a moment of it. I think they might have been a little nervous for me and what they were leaving me in. When homesickness crept in, it was their home I ran to, my safe place, and my second family. Years later, Beryl wouldn't have missed my wedding for the world, crossing the country to stand by my side. She and Stuart welcomed my husband Kirk into the Matheson clan, and over the years, their home became the setting for countless holiday dinners filled with laughter, stories, and love. 2 decades ago, when our daughter Ella was born, Beryl and Stuart were at our doorstep, eager to embrace the next generation. And when Stuart passed away, Beryl carried on, vibrant as ever, pouring love into our lives. She was there to welcome our son Callum, and as an avid sports fan, delighted in hearing stories of his journey in baseball. Though she never had the chance to watch him play, she followed his progress with pride and excitement, her love stretching across the miles, unwavering as ever. And now that we say goodbye, Beryl's presence remains woven into our hearts. She was a woman who loved deeply, laughed freely, and made every space she entered a little warmer, a little brighter. Her legacy is not just in the memories we all hold, but in the way she taught us to love unconditionally, to embrace our family, life's joys, and to be there for each other always. So today, we do not say farewell, but rather we will carry her forward. In every family gathering, in laughter, in every story shared around the table, Beryl will be there. Her love, an unbreakable thread, continues to bind us together. And though she may no longer walk beside us, her spirit will forever be at the heart of our family. So thank you, Beryl. And I want to thank her from my mom, because she really was a mother to her and a grandmother to me, as much she may be my aunt. And I'm thankful for Kathy and Dennis that I have an extended family here. So thank you, Beryl.
I should have been after Kathy. Good afternoon. My name is Gloria Brooks, and I have the privilege of being a longtime friend of Beryl's. I was asked to say a few words today, and I was going to start by sharing how I met Beryl, but Kathy kind of stole my thunder. I met Beryl at that Halloween party, which was hosted by a young couples club at Westmount Church. And we did actually invite anybody who wanted to come in the church, but we didn't really expect too many other people. So the only people that came that weren't part of the group were another couple, and as they came in behind them comes this little lady all dressed in black. And Kathy described exactly what she looked like. And the whole evening, no one knew who she was, and the pastor even, he just kept looking at her, and he couldn't figure it out. And finally, I think one of my friends thought they knew who it was, but I hadn't met Beryl then. So that was my first introduction to Beryl. When I was asked to speak, I decided to reach out to others who knew Beryl well to gather their thoughts. I asked them to describe Beryl in just one word, and here are some of the words they shared. Kind, nice, confident, that was the word from my 11-year-old grandson. Feisty, elegant, funny, friendly, generous, thoughtful, good friend. And she was definitely all of those things. I couldn't agree more with all these words. I was lucky enough to be friends with Beryl for over 55 years. And in that time, we shared many wonderful experiences. And I just wanted to mention, Beryl was about 23 years older than me. It never made a difference. We just hit it off, our families too. Together with Beryl, Stu, and Eldon, who was my husband, not the pastor. Imagine having two Eldons in the same place. We camped, we went to dances, we played games, cards, had countless visits, spent New Year's Eves together, and often Christmas Eve, and I think after Stuart passed away, Beryl also visited our house on Easter. Beryl had such a welcoming spirit, and she loved to be the hostess. She always made sure there was plenty of candy and food for everyone. I remember one time when our choir went over there after choir practice, and we all went into the living room and sat down, and there was candy all over the place, like M&Ms, M&M peanuts. My son remembers us going over there and there being peanuts and nuts and some little gummy candies. At the time, and I'm not sure if he's here today, but at the time we had a pastor who was single, and when we went into Beryl's house, he was just thoroughly enjoying all this candy. Like, it was great. He was just having a great time eating the candy. And then all of a sudden, Beryl came out with all this food, plates and plates of food, and the look on his face like, oh, why did I eat all that candy? But while we were eating, Beryl disappeared. And I'm not sure if we noticed right away that she disappeared, but they had a second story in their house, and she went upstairs. And all of a sudden, the door opened, Beryl comes downstairs, and she looks like she's ready to go to a hoedown. She had blacked out her teeth and done something to her hair and had on some country western outfit, and that was just Beryl, wasn't it? Just anything to make people happy and laugh. Beryl was also one of the original members of Westmount Baptist Church. If my husband and I had not chosen to go to that church, our paths wouldn't have crossed. But I'm so grateful we did. Beryl was a faithful member of the church, involved in many capacities over the years, including the choir. Even in her later years, when her hearing was basically gone, she still loved to come to church. She often wasn't fond of some of the changes we made, but you know what? She came anyway, and she loved being here and being with her friends. Church was a vital part of her life. I have so many wonderful memories of Beryl, too many to count. I am incredibly thankful for our friendship, and I will miss her dearly. Thank you.
Thank you each for sharing those memories. Certainly tributes that help us to know Beryl as she was, and I think we can all, as you were sharing with us, it brings back memories for all of us. Before I get to my prepared remarks, if I can just share a couple of reflections myself. I mentioned how her picture made me nervous this week in my office. I'll be honest, Beryl always made me a little nervous. I was just never really sure where I stood with her right from the very beginning when I got here, and it was one of the first weeks here, and I remember her saying, "Come here," and I went over and she told me something, and for the life of me, I did not know if she was being funny or if she was being serious. That went on. That never stopped. There were times when she would, I swear, couldn't hear a thing. I'd be trying to talk to her, and she'd just keep saying, "Hey?" And it's like she couldn't hear anything. And then there's other times I was talking about her, and from across the room, she'd say, "That's not true," or whatever. And you just never knew. She kept you on your toes. You all know, show of hands, how many of you received a birthday card or an anniversary card from Beryl, right? She was the most faithful card sender ever. I have a son who's having a birthday this next week, and there would have been a card in the mail. Like she just always sent cards to everyone. She sent me a lot of mail. I don't get mail anymore. I get mail. I get the bills and things like that, and flyers for things I don't want. But you don't ever really get snail mail anymore, right? There would be letters from Beryl in the mail, and it would always be a little note like this, and I would open it up. And it would always start something really sweet and supportive, like, "I really believe in you, I'm thankful for you." And then there'd be, "however," and she'd have a list of things that I should be paying attention to. I'm pretty sure that if this stream is making its way to heaven, she's watching it, and I'll receive some kind of a note in the week ahead of appreciated the celebration. However, you could have done it a little bit differently. Anyway, that was Beryl, and man, loved her, really did. In Ecclesiastes chapter 7, verses 1 to 4 in the Bible, we read this. And I read this, and it may seem a little inappropriate, but that's Beryl. It just seemed appropriate for her. I'm confident you've never heard this at a funeral before, but listen to these words from Ecclesiastes. A good reputation is more valuable than costly perfume, and the day you die is better than the day you were born. Better to spend your time at funerals than at parties. After all, everyone dies, so the living should take this to heart. Sorrow is better than laughter, for sadness has a refining influence on us. A wise person thinks a lot about death, while a fool only thinks about having a good time. Now, why would I share that with you? Well, I don't know about you, but at first reading, words like that don't seem to make a lot of sense. I mean, who actually prefers going to a funeral than going to a party? Wouldn't you rather be at a wedding today than a funeral? Well, we're trying to make this funeral more of a party. But I think the author of this passage is challenging us to realize that we can party our way through life without stopping to think about what life really means. In other words, we can take life for granted and forget that none of us knows how long it will last. Now, I'm not sure that Beryl ever wore costly perfume, despite all that time selling cosmetics, but I do know that she had style. And this passage gives us a few things to think about. You see, the occasion of a funeral or a celebration of life gives us a chance to think about the frailty of life and help us to make choices that enable us to make a name for ourselves and to leave a legacy that inspire others. You know, personally, I referred to Beryl as my Energizer Bunny. She came faithfully, right to the very end. She was here every week. I can look right now. We are sitting in her spot just back there. And she came every week, more faithful than a lot of people 50 years younger than her. And it didn't matter what the weather. She was here. And I appreciated that faithfulness about her. I appreciated that she was interested in others. Like you talk about making friends. She did. She took the time to know everyone. And so she made a name for herself, a name that everyone around her loved her and respected her. You know, this room is full right now, and yet online we're joined by others that couldn't make it here today. I've done a lot of funerals, and people this age don't typically have a packed house. You know, all their friends are gone. But Beryl, as you said before, never really acted her age and surrounded herself with people who were her friends, whether they wanted to be or not. And so you're here today, and in your presence here today is a testimony to the impact she had on our lives. Well, Stuart and Beryl both lived like that. And the author isn't saying that we should go through life thinking about death all the time and not enjoy the journey. I mean, that's kind of morbid. In fact, I know too many people, especially, it seems to me, and I hope I don't offend anyone with this, but it seems like since COVID, there's people that are so aware of the reality of death that they take no risks. They embrace no opportunities. People are so intent on not being dead that they never really live. And I don't think Beryl had that problem. I didn't know her when she was younger, but I've heard the stories. I came along 2 years after you gathered right here, and Pastor Stan Grummett led Stuart's funeral. In other words, Beryl was already old when I became the pastor here, but she never, ever acted her age. Despite the challenges of growing old, she was determined to really live life to the full. She loved people, and she wanted everyone around her to laugh and to have a good time and to enjoy life. And every once in a while, she would bug me for the permission to come up and entertain us and contribute to our service. Beryl was so intent on living, so intent on helping those around her live, that she never complained about her own limitations, her own pain, or suffering. I remember being told that after Tom Folletta, one of our members, moved into her building, she helped him fit in with the others by shooting pool with him. Knowing her, she probably convinced him to bet some money on the game and took it from him, but she was that kind of person who took care of others. She was also the kind of woman who was rather loud for her size and loved attention. I would suggest that Beryl made you pay attention to her, whether it was her sense of style or her dry sense of humor, or when she just told you, pay attention to me. She was always expressing her support for others, but she was also, it's like the spotlight kind of followed her around. When she entered the room, you knew she was there. And we loved that about her. She was one of those rare people that can demand attention, but wasn't offensive in doing it. She deserved the attention. The spotlight was a natural place for her. And she sure loved people. She loved her friends, she loved her neighbors, she loved her family, she loved her church family. She even loved those who were providing her medical care. She put her whole heart into those relationships. And she was loyal. Can we just say this? She was loyal. She was loyal to a fault. She was even loyal to the Maple Leafs. I don't know many people that are that loyal. I'm going to say I appreciate this about her because my wife, I'm a big sports fan, and my wife, when I start talking about hockey or soccer or whatever with her, my wife tends to go, like, she just tunes right out, right? Doesn't care at all. With Beryl, I could come to church and I'd see her and I'd say, "Did you catch the game last night?" And she'd just jump right into it, and she wanted to talk about it. She loved her Maple Leafs. I remember after she had moved into the home over in Ancaster that I went to see her, and I was sitting there, and we watched a hockey game together. And I'm pretty sure I still have the bruises on my arm from her hitting me as she would get so excited about what was going on. It was like she was right in there trying to throw a hip check or something. She just loved the sport. I remember, was it at her 100th birthday when she got all that bling from the Maple Leafs? They sent her all this stuff, and I was just like, wow, I was in awe of her. I'm like, okay, let me know how to get that kind of stuff from my favorite team, who aren't the Leafs. Anyway, the other thing about her apartment, and you talked about the bird paintings. I've never seen so many bird paintings. Incredible. When she found a new passion, she was all in, right? She was committed to it. And boy, she could paint. I couldn't believe the amount of art she generated. But now she's gone. Now we're left with this huge void that this tiny person has left in our lives. Beryl was so much to so many that her absence leaves a hole in our church and in our community. And so what do I say to you? Most of you don't know me. What can I say to bring you some comfort, some closure? As I was thinking about Beryl and her love for her dear Maple Leafs, I thought about how many seasons of disappointment she had to live through. As a Maple Leaf fan, pretty much every season ended with disappointment, with falling short, with failing to lift the Stanley Cup. I believe eventually they will. She didn't live long enough to see it. But in the meantime, that team, season after season, had to keep building and training and working and doing their jobs and standing up for each other until one day, someday, they'll receive their reward. May I suggest to you simply that Beryl played the game of life with courage and passion, and that she played this game a long time. She had some great teammates along the way, family and friends that she created memories with. Some great memories and some real disappointments. But she kept on going. Even after losing her greatest teammate, Stuart, she didn't give up. She didn't decide to just be old. She lived her life to the full. She lived it with purpose. And may I suggest to you that she is finally lifting her cup. She's finally received her reward. Victory is hers. The Bible uses the phrase that she has received her prize. And we can all say, what a great season you had, Beryl. What a great season it was. But today is not just about remembering and celebrating Beryl. It's about remembering and celebrating that you, her family and friends, are still alive. You're still in the midst of your season. You're still playing for your cup. So celebrate today that you have this day, today, to really live. I'm very, very confident of this after my many conversations with Beryl, that if she could speak to you right now from the other side of death, she would say that every breath you take is a gift from God, so don't waste a single one. She'd say, don't miss a chance to laugh out loud. And don't give up on your teammates. She would say, work diligently and live simply. She'd say, help your neighbors, invest in your community, spend time with your family, and love one another extravagantly. She would say, don't you dare quit until you lift the cup. And my friends, I believe she would tell you that it's really not just about your effort, that real life is found in the amazing grace of God. Beryl loved to sing. It was mentioned how she was in our choir, and she regularly gave me advice on what songs we should be singing in church. This is one of the songs she really loved. I would invite you to join me in singing these familiar words right now, Amazing Grace. Thank you for your fine singing. I'm sure she would have appreciated that choir. Listen, you're invited to join the family in a time of reception and fellowship in our hall just across the way here. We invite you to do that. First, let me close us in prayer. Eternal God, go before us to lead our ways from death to life. Help each one of us as we play our game of life. that we might finish as well as Beryl has. Gather us together one day with Beryl into the company of those who win the prize and live with you forever. God, we know that Beryl is at rest where swollen limbs and pain and disappointment are no more. Thank you for all those who've supported her during her life here on earth and in her service of your kingdom. God, our loss is heavy. Our pain is deep. Some of us perhaps believed that Beryl just might live forever with us. But her season is over, and you've given her the reward that is hers. Thank you for receiving her to yourself. Thank you for the confidence we have in life beyond the grave. And so now, God, grant us your peace. Thank you also for the food that's been prepared for us and for the fellowship we will have together around the tables. Amen. May God, our Creator and Healer, comfort your hearts and be gracious to you and grant you peace. Amen.